Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. As always, these shows are brought to you by Stevens Automotive and Sales and Kelly's Little Nipper. Kelly's Little Nipper over there at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Perfect spot for a date night if you're just looking to have a few drinks, have some great food, hang out with some great people, but also a wonderful place in terms of a watch party. And this weekend, with all the great college football games on, you need to get over to Kelly's Little Nipper and experience the full atmosphere. It is great food, great drinks, better community, and on top of that, they have the best deal in town. So the best deal in town is your first drink is on the house if you use this keyword. Now, the keyword, we say it all the time throughout the show, so if you've been listening, first off, thank you. But also, you know what the keyword is, and it's Woodley. You go in, use that keyword Woodley, and the first drink is on the house. You're not going to get a better deal than that here in this state. So get over to Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Great food, great drinks, and even better community. When you go there, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. So we have a great show. Fridays are always jam-packed with game previews and predictions, but this is the best weekend in college football. This is the weekend all of us had circled. This was the weekend all of us made those jokes of, if there's a wedding on this day, I am ditching it. Honestly, if you have any issues, go handle them yourself like adults, because I'm staying inside in my pajamas, not leaving the couch, and just watching 24 hours of straight football. That is this weekend. We have games of Alabama, Georgia, which is always great. 17 Bama taking on number 5 Georgia. That's a game where if there's ever a year that both of these teams are in the lower 20s, it will still be a must-watch game. Even if they're unranked, it feels like it will be a must-watch game. You have Ole Miss, LSU. You have a top 10 matchup of Oregon, Penn State, a Big Ten championship rematch. You have in this state, Iowa taking on a top 12 opponent in Indiana. Iowa State, number 14 in the country, coming back home after a bye. So many great games. And we usually go through these games and we pick our top 4 for the weekend and give our predictions and our previews. But here's the deal. Drake is on a bye, so we're not previewing or giving a deep dive for Drake's game this weekend. There's so many good ranked games, we're adding extras. We usually just pick 4, we're adding more. We're making sure we're getting through all the top ranked games for this weekend, and hopefully we'll be a lot better in our predictions and our pick'ems than we were last week. Last week, it wasn't pretty. Boys and girls in the Media Row podcast, if you were putting money down on what we were saying, I apologize. We said, we gave a disclaimer last week that with all the games that felt like they were coin flips, we could easily see ourselves going 1-3. Well, we went 1-3. That now pushes our overall pick'ems now to 10-6, so we're still above 500. We're still doing good, but we need to be better. So hopefully this weekend, with one of the toughest weekends to make predictions on, we play and pick a lot better. So we have our college football predictions and previews coming up on the show, as well with it being a show where we don't have the Drake preview deep dive. We now have more time to be able to talk about the NFL, where we always give our top 4 games and our predictions for the weekend with the NFL. But I thought it would be perfect timing since on Wednesday's show, and if you missed it, make sure to go check it out, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. But on Wednesday's show, we gave our most surprising, most disappointing college football teams. Thought it'd be fun to do a similar thing with the NFL, giving our top 5 teams in the AFC and NFC, as well as our top 4 games. So that is our preview for today's show. Now let's jump in to our preview for the college football weekend. Let's start off locally. Let's start off with the top 14 team in the country right now, a team coming off a bye, and that is back home in Ames, Iowa, taking on Arizona. The Iowa State Cyclones, a 6.5-point favorite over the Wildcats. 6 o'clock kickoff, whiteout in Jack Trice Stadium. Should be a fun one because you have Iowa State, top 15 team in the country, going up against Arizona, who's just quietly sitting there in the mix in the Big 12. I think after last weekend and after how well Texas Tech performed against a really good Utah team and a team I still believe in, Texas Tech has solidified itself as the top runner in the Big 12 conference. But you look at Arizona, and Arizona 3-0. They looked good against Kansas State. They have an ability with the strong defense to make a push, and they kind of just need that one game to kind of get themselves on the map. And a road environment against a top 15 team against Iowa State, that's a great opportunity. And it would be one that would be an exclamation point on just the chaos in the Big 12. But we'll break down to see if I actually believe Arizona can pull it off. First off, kind of a background on these two teams. Both teams coming off from a bye. They had Iowa State 2 weeks ago, and just that weird all-around performance, just a scheduling of an Arkansas State game. They took down Arkansas State 24-16 on the road. It was not pretty. 2 weeks ago, if you're listening, I said the good teams win the ugly ones. But man, if you're Iowa State, you're kind of second guessing why even schedule that game. What a terrible schedule. You go to Dublin against a rival, a conference rival in Kansas State. Then you have to go the following week to play a top 5 FCS team. Then the next week you have to play your in-state rival in Iowa, which is always a battle and highly emotional. And that one goes to the wire. You win it off of a game-winning field goal. Then you have to go to Arkansas to play Arkansas State in 100-degree weather. Just a really weird schedule and a really weird game all around. But Iowa State wins an ugly one against Arkansas State 24-16 2 weeks ago. Now they have a bye. They're hopefully rejuvenated, refocused after just a really tough schedule. And they handled it 4-0. And then you have Arizona. 2 weeks ago on a Friday night against Kansas State at home. Win also just a battle and kind of an ugly game against the Wildcats. 23-17. Arizona beats Kansas State. So when you're looking at these two teams, this could easily turn into a heavyweight battle with these defenses. One, we know John Haycock is a tremendous defensive coordinator for Iowa State. But Arizona right now, despite an easier schedule than Iowa State, 8th in yards per game allowed in the country. And now they really have only played Kansas State. But still, being 8th in the country means a lot. And you have an Iowa State defense that is now rejuvenated after a bye week and also starting to bring in some guys that were on that injured list. So earlier this week, we heard some of the players that were returning for Iowa State, starting off with Carson Willick. If you remember listening a few weeks ago with the Cyhawk preview, John Walters and I talked about how that was a vital player having to miss a few games for Iowa State at that linebacker position. When you have a feeling a game is going to be a battle in the trenches, a brutal physical matchup, you want your linebackers healthy. And Iowa State, they have good depth at linebacker. They seem fairly healthy, but you want that veteran leadership that Willick has. So that's a huge gain for Iowa State coming back this week, especially against a conference opponent, an undefeated conference opponent at that, as well as Aiden Flora coming back. And then the biggest one offensively coming back is tight end Gabe Burkle. So 2 weeks ago, I was critical of just Mauser's play calling against Arkansas State. Felt like he was trying to be too cute with the play calls, for a lack of a better term, was trying to force some play calls, which is unique for Iowa State. This is a team that usually has a game plan, they execute it, and they stick to it. But you had a guy like Carson Hansen who was carving up the Arkansas State defense in the first half. Then you go to the third quarter, and he gets the ball once, maybe twice. And that's a big key for this game. If it's going to be physical, you're going to need to get Hansen going. And one of the best ways to get him going actually comes from that tight end position. You have Ben Bramer, who is more like that Travis Kelce, just an extra wide receiver. I love Ben Bramer. Offensively, very talented. In terms of blocking, the best tight end on the team in blocking is Gabe Burkle. Now, we saw what Gabe Burkle can do on the receiving end as well in that Cyhawk game, where he had 2 incredible catches down the stretch that led to Iowa State winning that game. But his blocking is incredible and is second to none on this team. So you get him back, him healthy, and that's going to lead to Carson Hansen getting more open areas downfield and more opportunities. And I look forward to seeing how Mauser calls this game after what I would assume even he, rewatching that game, would probably see some errors and like to make some corrections going into Arizona. The only bad news that we really saw with Iowa State during this bye week and this week comes at kicker. Kyle Conradi. And it doesn't sound like he's going to be out for a long term, but will miss this game. Kyle Conradi, if this is going to be a back and forth battle, if this is going to be a physical battle, the last one we saw like that was Iowa. And a huge factor and the game winner came at the field goal from Kyle Conradi. So that's a huge, huge blow to Iowa State. They always have good special teams. You have confidence that the depth at kicker will hopefully be well, but you are missing out on a guy who holds the record for longest field goal made at Jack Trice Stadium and who just kicked a game winner against Iowa. So when looking at this game and deciding who I'm going to pick, I always go to the quarterback matchup. It's just a quick, easy way to look at these two teams. Fafita for Arizona has progressed tremendously. And if you haven't been able to watch him, he's really a dual threat quarterback. Can get it done with his legs. He's second on the team in rushing. But his progress comes with his arm and his decision making. A year ago, he had 12 interceptions. 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He had an interception in 9 of the 12 games. This season, he's starting off and making the right decisions and not turning over the ball at all. 6 touchdowns, 0 picks. That is crucial for both teams. Arizona loses this game if they lose the turnover battle. Iowa State handles this game if this defense can pull off a few turnovers and get to the quarterback. Rocco, on the other hand, I mean, what else more is there to say about Rocco that we haven't? He is so calm, cool, and collected, so mature, has a cannon for an arm, but also has touch with the ball. Few of these deep passes are just a hair off, and Arkansas State had a few missed throws. Against Iowa had a few missed throws, but it's still there where I have so much confidence in Rocco Beck. If you listen to the Fox broadcast in the Cyhawk game, Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt constantly talked about how Iowa State is they're most comfortable when the game is tight and it's in the hands of Rocco Beck. And that's why Iowa State wins this game. I think bringing back a few key players on defense is huge. Gabe Burkle is huge. I think Mauser calls a better game. I like Iowa State, and I like the points at home. Give me Rocco and the Cyclones improving to 5-0 on the season against Arizona. Moving on, we're staying local with Iowa against number 11 Indiana. 7.5-point favorites are the Hoosiers. Iowa, this starts a tough stretch of games. This game will be the start of 4 ranked teams in their next 6 games. That includes games against Oregon and Penn State coming up here in the next few weeks. But let's start with Indiana. Mendoza, front runner for Heisman all of a sudden. You blink and it's someone new, especially with John Matier from Oklahoma being out now for a few weeks with a hand injury. But that offense for Indiana, that performance against number 9 Illinois was incredible. 63 points. I should have looked at the drive chart, but I'm not even sure if they punted once. Anything they wanted to do, they got done. And that's against a number 9 team in the country. And now you could talk if Illinois was overranked or not. I had Illinois winning. I thought it'd be closer. I thought it'd be a tough matchup. It was not. Indiana just did everything that they would want to do. And then you look and you're looking at the quarterback position. Well, Indiana has the advantage there. Running back. Usually Iowa has that advantage, but man, Black has been playing well too for Indiana, and he has more rushing yards than Iowa, so maybe Indiana has the advantage on that front. Wide receiver, clear favorite on Indiana. And then defense. Even Indiana's defense looks a little better than Iowa's early on. So Indiana has the advantage on every front. Hawks desperately. They need an all-time performance, an all-time turnaround performance from the corners and safeties. Iowa against Rutgers. Talk about in that first half a team that could really do whatever they wanted, had no fear passing the ball deep downfield, was Rutgers. And it was because the corners and safeties for Iowa just could not get locked in, were getting burned all over the field. They let up 6 passes of 20 yards or more against Rutgers. I can't remember the last time I watched an Iowa defense and said, man, this defense is struggling. This is a bad defense. And now, I said last week that I have confidence in Phil Parker making the right changes, making adjustments, because we know the defense can make halftime adjustments. We don't know if the offense does as often. But when you're going up against a team like Indiana that just appears to be able to do whatever they want, both penalties as well on the secondary for Iowa against Rutgers. For Iowa, you're playing at Kinnick. Always a difficult place to play. If they beat Indiana, are we saying it's a shock? Is it the upset of the century? No, because we've seen it happen. They could get blown out in this game. They could get blown out in the next game and still beat either Penn State or Oregon. And you'd be surprised, but it wouldn't be the shock around the world because it is Kinnick. Kinnick has that factor. But man, it's still Indiana who put up 63 against a top 10 team who has the Heisman front runner now at quarterback and just looks unstoppable. I know a few people were talking about earlier in the week, is this a good time for Iowa to play Indiana? They're coming off of a huge victory against a top 10 team. Do they overlook Iowa? Cignetti doesn't catch me as that kind of coach. I feel like Indiana will be ready to go against Iowa. I like Indiana and I like the points, which is crazy to say because I always felt if it was a Phil Parker coach defense in Kinnick, Iowa would keep it close. But Indiana wins. The 7.5 I like for Indiana. And I just think the secondary, who barely could keep up against Rutgers, will get burned by Indiana this weekend. So we have Iowa State and Indiana in our local games coming out victorious. Now let's get into the national games. The games of the weekend, the whole reason all of us circled this weekend was for these national games, starting with, I think, the game of the weekend. Big Ten championship rematch, number 6 Oregon at number 3 Penn State. Penn State 3.5-point favorites. Penn State again, a team where they haven't played anyone. They haven't proven to me really anything. And yet I'm supposed to sit back and just give them the benefit of the doubt of like, oh yeah, they're a top 5 team. They haven't shown me anything. And it's very similar to the college football playoff a year ago, where they got gifted the easiest route to the college football playoffs. And it was weird. When they came across a team that was just as good, if not better than them, they lost in Notre Dame. And that's kind of how I feel about this Penn State team through the 4 weeks of college football. But as I start to break down this team in this game, I'm looking at the star positions first. And outside of running back, where Penn State, I think, does have the best running back in Singleton between the two, I have Oregon with the advantage everywhere. Even though Penn State revamped their wide receiver room, which was a huge need in the offseason, I still like Oregon's receivers. When you're looking at the defense, it's close, but I still favor Oregon. But you look at the quarterbacks, and Drew Aller just doesn't do much for me and hasn't shown much through 4 games. He hasn't had to, is the argument against that point. But you look at Dante Moore, nearly 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, only 1 interception. If he had Penn State's easy schedule of not a single power conference opponent, that dude is easily number 1 in the Heisman race. But yet Drew Aller, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, just doesn't jump out to me. Even when you watch the games, he's not the player that jumps out. It's Singleton. Another reason, and this is the stat that gets brought up all the time with Penn State in these huge games. The reason I like Oregon is the coaching battle. Give me Lanning all day over James Franklin. James Franklin has Penn State in the top 5, is a team that was one of the favorites to win the Big Ten, had an opportunity to get into the national championship a season ago. But yet, what's the storyline with James Franklin? He doesn't win the big games. James Franklin, 4-20 versus top 10 teams. I know it's at Penn State. I know it's a whiteout. It is going to be an amazing atmosphere. It's going to be tough for Dante Moore, who's a sophomore quarterback going into that hostile environment. But I still like Dan Lanning. I like the weapons that Moore has around him. I trust Moore more than I do Drew Aller. Give me Oregon upsetting Penn State at home, because right now I think it's between Oregon and Ohio State in that conversation for the Big Ten champion. So our next game we're going to get into is, is it the best game in the SEC? I think it is. You still have LSU, Ole Miss, but Bama, Georgia. 17 Bama at number 5 Georgia. Georgia 3.5-point favorites. And Georgia, the storyline you're going to hear with the Bulldogs all weekend long is that home winning streak. 33 straight games they have won at home. Second, interestingly enough, is Washington with 22 straight wins at home, who plays number 1 Ohio State this weekend. My biggest question going into this game, people are back on that Bama hype train pretty quick. I mean, they lost and looked bad against Florida State. Then they play a podunk team. Then they beat at home a bad Wisconsin team where, according to you guys on Twitter, which thank you for your comments and feedback, you guys picked Fickell as the next head coach to get fired after the Mike Gundy news. But yet, after all that, I listen to shows, I'm watching ESPN, everyone back on that Bama hype train. I need to see more. I like Ryan Williams, but Bama hasn't shown me a whole lot. Against Wisconsin, it didn't do much for me. Sorry. I don't feel like Wisconsin is that good of a team. Sure, it's surprising to me how they've kind of fallen off, but still, on the road at Bama, I would expect Bama to perform the way they did. What I don't hear are critics on the Bulldogs offense or Stockton throwing the ball. And isn't that kind of funny? Going into that Tennessee game a few weeks ago, us on this show, we talked about how Stockton can easily move this offense downfield. He didn't need to prove a whole lot in those early games to still allow me to be confident in this offense moving forward. And what this game is going to come down to is, can Bama get pressure on Stockton? Can they make him uncomfortable? Georgia has a hurt offensive line. Bama second to last in the SEC in sacks. It's going to come down to that line of scrimmage. If you give Stockton time, Georgia has no issue against Bama. I really believe that. If you are able to knock him on his back a couple of times, then this game gets interesting. But give me Georgia at home. 34 straight games. I think they get to it. I like the points, 3.5. Give me Georgia with the points because it could still be a one-score game. I'm 28-21 Georgia victory is not out of the realm. So give me the Georgia Bulldogs winning at home, extending that winning home streak to 34 games over rival Alabama, which I should have looked up the exact date. But I heard this where the winner of this game has gone on to win the SEC like every year for the past 10 years. The only time it got broken was LSU's magical run in 2019. Just incredible. I love those little fun tidbits before games, and that one's crazy. Just the godfathers of the SEC. So I have Georgia winning that one. Moving on, here we are going to do our 2 extra games. We usually don't do 6 games for college football. We're doing it because this is such a special weekend. So our quick picks. You have 6.5-point favorites, 21 USC at 23 Illinois. Man, lost a lot of faith in Illinois. After that performance against Indiana, I thought that defense would have been more physical. I thought it would have been more difficult for Mendoza. Indiana hadn't played a power conference team up to that point, and they handled Illinois the same way they handled Indiana State. I'm, to be honest, shocked Illinois is still in the top 25 at that point, but I think USC has found a quarterback. I think USC wins this game. I think Illinois gets knocked out at home. I didn't know much about them, and them being in the top 10 a week ago did seem a little off, but man, I had faith in the coaching staff. I had faith in that physical defense, and it just didn't show a whole lot to me. I lost a lot of faith in them. So give me USC and give me the points at 6.5. Moving on to number 4 LSU at 13 Ole Miss. Is Ole Miss truly the 13th best team in the country? They're undefeated, but man, that defense struggles. So you have Ole Miss defensive struggles, 4th worst in the SEC. They're last in the SEC versus the rush, which good for them because LSU is struggling offensively. LSU, 2nd to last in rushing in the SEC. So who wins this game? You have an offense struggling and a defense struggling. And you look at LSU, that win against Clemson, maybe doesn't look as great now because clearly Clemson is not the team we thought they would be. Florida, that one doesn't even look that great because the offense really struggled against that great Florida defense, but you were just lucky that your defense was able to pick off Lagway 6 different times. So I'm going back and forth. Thought about taking Ole Miss. They're the home team. Do I trust Kiffin? Do I trust LSU? I trust the defense. And it's going to be the cliche defense travels. I think LSU does have a good defense. I think they made Lagway really uncomfortable. I know that Clemson isn't what they seemed, but man, they really made Klubnik uncomfortable. So I have LSU winning. Give me the Tigers over Ole Miss, and LSU continues to stay unbeaten and in the top 5. So to do a quick recap of our college football picks, we have Iowa State over Arizona, Indiana over Iowa, Oregon over Penn State, Georgia over Bama, and USC over Illinois, as well as LSU over Ole Miss. Let's get into some NFL discussion. We haven't been able to really do a deep dive on the NFL for a while now. So this will be fun to do because on Wednesday, we talked about, our most surprising and most disappointing teams of the college football season to this point. So I thought it'd be fun to do our top 5 from each conference in the NFL to this point. We'll also get to our 4 picks as well. Let's start in the AFC. Number 1, easily the Buffalo Bills. I think Patrick Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback, is still top 5, but Josh Allen, I think after last season with really the lesser weapons he had around him and still being able to put out an MVP type performance, going into this season where week 1 he leads an all-timer comeback, I have Josh Allen as the best quarterback in the league. I think the Bills are the best team in the league right now. Number 2, the Chargers. Harbaugh has something clicking just right. Herbert is looking really good. Denver gave them a run for their money, but Herbert continues to just be pinpoint accuracy. I love how they're just get the ball to Herbert, let him sling it. I love how that's the offensive game plan. It's what it should have been for the LA Chargers for the past 3 years. So I have Chargers number 2. This was a team, not number 3, that I thought a week ago would have been number 2 in the AFC, could have even made an argument for number 1. But after Monday night, I have the Ravens dropping to 3. The way this defense has dropped since McDonald had left for Seattle, and just the way untimely and costly turnovers late in games continue to hurt this team. It's so surprising it's coming from Derrick Henry too. But it continues to hurt this team. And I can't have the Ravens up any higher. Give me the Ravens at 3. And maybe some of you with this next pick are like, well, they should be over the Ravens. They're undefeated. I get it, but I put an asterisk next to the Colts because I think they lose to the Rams this weekend. And I also just feel like it's going to run out here soon. I like what they've been doing. Taylor has been performing great. Indiana Jones, which is a fantastic nickname for Daniel Jones, has been incredible. Has the NFL Comeback Player of the Year locked up at this point. Love how the GM, she's on the sideline with the headset. I love that storyline. Love what I'm seeing from Indianapolis. I just think it's going to catch up to them. So at this point, I do have them in the top 5, but I don't see them staying there till the end of the season. And a team with a losing record that I have in the top 5 because I have a feeling they're going to really jump up into that top 3 by the end of the year, it's the Chiefs. Because I have a feeling once you bring back those 2 wide receivers, they're going to get force-fed, and Mahomes is going to look more like his old self. Kelsey has always performed better when he's not the go-to guy. When he's the second or third option, he's always been better at that. So he's going to perform better, and I have the Chiefs performing better, but they round out my top 5 in the AFC. Moving on to the NFC. Almost had this team despite beating the number 2 team on this list. Almost had them at number 2. But they're undefeated. I feel like you have to put the reigning national or Super Bowl champs up front, the Eagles. That defense has really declined, and we'll talk more about the Eagles later on here in the show. But the team I was going to put at number 1, and I just felt like I just couldn't, was the Rams. They gave the Eagles everything they had. if it wasn't for a freak block kick, they win that game. Matthew Stafford is playing out of this world. Doesn't look like he's a, 15-year vet. Just absolutely slinging it. Great wide receiving core. The team is just one of the most well-balanced offenses we've seen in the NFL to this point. Number 3, one of the best well-rounded teams in general, showed some struggle, and Jordan Love started to show his old self against the Browns as the Packers fall to Cleveland on the road in a really ugly loss. But I still have faith in the Packers, and I still like what I've seen from them defensively in the NFC to put them at number 3. Number 4, I have the Lions. After that performance against the Ravens, where, man, the defense has a lot to work on, but overall that offense looks like it is geared and ready to go for another deep playoff run. That offense is looking so good. I love how Campbell has just continued to play ballsy, coach ballsy with that 4th and 1, and they throw a wheel route on the near sideline for a gain of like 20 yards. Just really confident play calling, and you can see the offense is very confident and gelled together as well. Number 5, we have the Tampa Bay Bucks, who I think just have a swagger. They never feel like they're out of any game, no matter how bad they play against the Texans or Jets. They still come out on top. I do like Tampa Bay, but we'll get to some of their issues here in a little bit. So here's our top 4 games. Starting with the Vikings and Steelers, an early morning game as this one's overseas. I think Wentz played great, and I think that defense is starting to gel for Minnesota. Steelers, on the other hand, that defense, that secondary is so old, one of the oldest in the NFL. Rodgers hasn't looked the same since that week 1 breakout game against the Jets. I like whoever is in that Vikings coaching staff that is making every quarterback look good, and Wentz continues to play well, and I think they get it done versus the Steelers. Moving on, Ravens at Chiefs. Ravens should be 3-0. You don't turn over the ball late in 2 games, you're 3-0. And I think the Ravens still have confidence in that offense, just with all the weapons they have with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Andrews. You're hopefully bring back Likely here soon. Give me the Ravens on the road against the Chiefs, but I still think the Chiefs, even with that loss, they're going to keep it close because every game they've been in, it's been a 1-possession game, every game. And that's without some of their biggest stars. Sunday night football, we have the Packers at Cowboys. I mean, easy. Cowboys just got blown out to one of the worst teams in the Bears, and the Cowboys defense struggles. Jordan Love throws for 3 touchdowns, and then defensively, Parsons coming back to Dallas, he eats, and Cowboys can't do anything. Give me the Packers easily. Give me the 6.5. Our final game of our predictions, Eagles at Bucks. Huge game. The defensive drop-off from the Eagles has been crazy. They were one of the best a year ago. Now they're in the middle of the pack everywhere, in every stat. Was going to take the Bucks because of just how the Eagles just haven't looked to that top-tier ability that we know they can be yet this season, but the injury bug has hit Tampa Bay. Bucks have no wide receivers outside of rookie Ibuka, who has been amazing, but Godwin's questionable and Evans to miss multiple weeks, and because of that, I think the Bucks lose, and I have the Eagles winning. Whew! Busy show, fun show. Love these Friday shows of just previewing games for the weekend. It gets you hyped for this weekend, and this one is going to be an amazing one. Can't wait on Monday to come back and recap another amazing weekend of football. Maybe we'll have more basketball news, coach firings. Who knows what will happen next week. But that will do it for this week's show. Make sure to go like, subscribe, comment, rate, all that good stuff. Follow us on all social media. wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to follow us there. Also, make sure to go over to Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa for any of your car needs. Love these people like family. 35 years of family owned and operated here in this state. They're wonderful people. Get over there for any of your car needs. I trust them full-heartedly. You should too. And once you go there once, you're going to realize why I've been pushing them so much, because they're wonderful, wonderful people. 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in this state. When you go there, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. So that'll do it for this week's show. Thank you guys again so much. Make sure to follow us all over social media for this weekend, just for conversation throughout this another amazing weekend of college football. We will see you guys on Monday for a brand new edition of the Media Row podcast.